Hi Will, this is Greg Weeks and I'm going to be going over the real-time networking final. So I'm just going to start each game and go through the loop just so you can see that everything is working. So I've got the client on the left side here and the server on the right side. So I'm going to join up. And I've actually changed the start key for the server to S. So don't be mashing space thinking that you can get into the game and that there's something wrong. The start key is actually S. Just so I can restart the game loop because pressing space causes some issues normally. Alright, so I'm just using WASD for controls here on the server side, these standard controls. So the kills and deaths are being kept track of. Just go back up here. Can lay down a mine, if I can remember what key that is. Go over to the client here. There we go. Player 1 wins. So, mine, collision, bullets, everything. I think that was a demonstration of everything that worked. So we're back in the lobby now and we're still connected to the server, so I'm just going to press S again to restart. And here we are. I'm going to play the client side now. So I, J, K, and L to move around the blue ship. I'm going to try to kill this guy. Cannot aim with these controls. But the kills and deaths are still being kept track of. Come on. I'm quite awful at this game. I hope you are speeding up this portion of the video. Alright, player 2 wins. Okay, and we can just repeat this ad nauseum. So, yep, everything seems to be working just fine. So I'm going to close both of these and just go through exactly what I did to get all of this functionality down. So pretty much the first thing that I did was go into the data messages here and add an angle to the player update message, so right here. So I just went through and serialized that properly and deserialized that, added those functions. And then in the game manager over here, let's see if I can find it. Alright, player update message. So I'm just adding in player 1 and player 2 get angles and radians. I'm updating that. So the second thing that I did to get the actual attacks working was I actually created a new data message, player attack message right here. So what that does is taking a player ID and 2 booleans for whether or not you're firing a missile or laying a mine, and that's actually sent across through the client. So we've got player input and player attack, and what that's going to do is send it over to the server here. So you can see all these different messages, these data messages that we're sending over. So all the messages over here are the messages that are sent from the server to the client, and then these are the client to server. So all we're sending from the client are the input messages and the attack messages, obviously, which is kind of the same thing. I could have just put the attack messages inside of the input messages, but in order to sort of separate these things out, I just created a new message for that. Okay, so rotation, laying mines, shooting. So the next thing would be how I handled the fence collision. Let's go over here. Alright, so I created a fence hit message. Well, I didn't create this message. It was actually already here in one of the demos that you sent out. But I implemented this message, rather, and all this is just an integer for the fence ID. So when I create the fences here in Game Manager, just scroll down here, you can go into fence and see how that's created. So we get the fence ID counter, and then each fence has its own ID, and I increment that counter with every constructor. So when the game is reset, that counter also resets. So each one of these IDs is unique to a specific fence, and they're all created in the same order. So as long as they're all created in the same order, I'm going to be colliding with a fence. So when I actually collide with the fence, let's see. I have fence fencerton king of fences, and this is just a fence variable that I set at the very end. Let's see, here we go. So this is the last fence that I actually create, and I don't think I need to be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. I just call a function to reset the counter to 0 when the game is reset. So right before I destroy all the lists, I just reset the counter to 0. I don't think I need to be doing that. So I could honestly probably take that out, because I got that working before I actually got the whole game reset working. So anyway, the fence message, let me see if I can find that. Should be process fence hit or something like that. Sorry, I hope you're speeding through this video. Jeez. Anyway, what I do is just loop through all the game objects in the scene, check and see if they are actually a fence, and then I check the ID against the actual fence message. So I think I actually do this on the client side, that's why I'm not actually finding it. Okay, yeah, here we go. No, still wrong. I don't know why I can't find this function. I'm so sorry about that. Here we go. Yeah, process fence hit. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I just loop through the main like game object list of all the objects that are actually in the scene. Just as I said, check and see if it's of type fence, get the fence ID, and then take the ID from the message and compare it, and then call it's on hit. So that's how I'm doing collision for the fences. And I'm doing pretty much the exact same thing for the mines. So you already saw how I laid the mines through the attack message. But what I'm doing is just setting an ID for each mine, checking the ID, and then calling the on hit. So when that message is actually sent out, just checks that. So go to mine here. Alright, so we got mine ID counter. I don't need to increment the counter since the mines sort of have like their own IDs. There's a finite amount of them, so I don't need to increment this the same way that I do the fences, but it's the same thing, it just has an ID. Cool, so after that, it was the player kill message to get the life cycle going. So this message is really, really beefy. And I did that because I just wanted to send over all the data for like the deaths, the kills, the lives, basically everything that's on the scoreboard, and the respawn point as well. So this definitely has a little bit too much going on. I could have like created different messages just to make this more coherent, but it does work. So what I'm doing is if we go over to the game manager, and then we take a look at the player killed method, this is doing absolutely nothing on the client side. So everything is calculated over here in the player killed method for the server. Alright, so player 1 is killed, and then what we're doing is just sending over that data in the player killed message here. So yeah, it's kind of a lot of data. Honestly, I could have separated this out, but it sort of makes sense in my brain to sort of keep all of this data consolidated in one spot, because this is actually the only place that I need to call this. And then yeah, we're just sending that to the input queue, sending it over. So we've got lives, deaths, kills, score. So all of this stuff is just a scoreboard update. So we do the calculation on this side, don't do anything on this side. And then yeah, obviously the spawn X and Y we needed. The spawn X and Y we needed because we needed to see like where the player was actually respawning. This destroy boolean is probably not the best way of doing this, to be honest. But I'm essentially swapping this out for like another message entirely. Because I know I'm just going to be sending a message here, so I just sort of slapped this boolean there anyway. I didn't want to create like a whole new message for this boolean specifically, because I was going to change the game state here. But this essentially just tells the client whether or not they should destroy everything in the scene, and then restart the game, because this is actually the condition in which they would do that. So rather than like swapping over to add point, it does that. So in our actual add point on the server, see. So add point update. Yeah, so this is all we're doing in the add point update. I think this is pretty much exactly the same as the initial add point update. So let me look at this one. Whoops. Okay, yeah, so this add point is actually called when the destroy boolean is enabled. So this is just checking the score. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. But we are calling destroy all over here just to ensure that everything is actually destroyed. So I just rearranged a couple things and threw in a boolean rather than creating a whole new message for destroying everything in the scene. This works just fine. Yeah, so this is where we're actually processing that message. So we're just taking in all those variables and just setting them to these so that they display properly on the client side. Whether or not to respond player 1 and player 2, and then this is that destroy all method. So we're just swapping that over to add point. All right, cool. I think that pretty much handles everything because I went over all the data messages and that was the bulk of the work here. The only other extra thing that I did was like add the S key to the server side so that I can actually restart the game properly. Alright, well that pretty much does it for this video. I think that's all of the implementation that I needed to go over. Yeah, that's it. See you next year.